My name is Dom Douglas, and I am back-to-back XWW Commentator of the Year. With that comes some responsibilities, but also a lot of fun and excitement, and I'm never ashamed to look like a complete fool. Speaking of that, I love playing Magic the Gathering, so much so that I kind of think I play it a little bit too much, and I have some opinions. So now, XtremeTVOnline.com and XWW Wrestling on YouTube presents my podcast where I talk about Magic the Gathering. It's the Goblin Grenade Podcast. Folks, welcome to episode 2. Sorry about this shadow right here. It's for a reason. I'll tell you right now, it might not even see it because I have a camera set up. I tried my damnedest, okay, to get everything set up in such a way that, first off, I shouldn't be shaking as much. Sorry about that in the last episode. Also, I shouldn't, need to edit the vast majority of these. The only reason why today's getting an edit is because, we're going over some commander deck techs. Nothing crazy. All 24 of my commander decks. Yeah, there we go. And hopefully the volumes have been adjusted accordingly as well. But first things first. A big shout out to XtremeTVOnline.com, $4.99 a month. First 5 days are free to catch all the XWW action. As if you're fans of wrestling, that is, the promotion I mainly work for. My name's Dom Douglas, back-to-back commentator of the year, as the intro said. And this is my Magic the Gathering podcast mainly. There is no wrestling involved. If you clicked on this link thinking, you were going to get wrestling news and whatnot, I apologize well in advance. You can click off now. I'm sorry about that. No wrestling is involved. This is Magic the Gathering, and I have a lot of commander decks, okay? We'll get some pickup shots of the 24 commander decks that I own. Now, some are precons. Some are precons that have never been upgraded. Some are precons that have had a couple cards put in there. The first one we're going over, Anji Falkenrath. This was the first ever commander deck that I got. And this was after, recovering from my hip replacement and marathoning game nights. Honest to truth, just being laid up for a few weeks in the bed and barely moved. I just discovered game nights, or just started caring about watching it and seeing what Commander was all about. And relatively quickly realized, oh man, I actually do like this format. So there we go with that. That's how I got into Commander. After playing Magic on and off, mainly, since, 25, 30 years almost at this point. Like, I want to say like 25 years, like I was a teenager when I was playing. It just celebrated the 30th anniversary. I wasn't there in the beginning, but it's damn near close. So anyway, Anji, Falkenrath. Haste. It's a Rakdos, which is 1 black and a red. Haste, tap to discard a card, draw a card. Whenever you discard a card that has madness, untap Anji Falkenrath. A lot of these cards in this deck have madness. If you discard that card, you get it for you get it for less. So you have to build the deck around the madness cost of Anji, and you can constantly feed your hand as long as most of your stuff has a madness cost. Now, with these decks, I'm going to show you the deck box that they came in as well. This is a Game Genic box. This is great. I love these Game Genics. These are the clear ones. I have many deck boxes that you will see. So, key cards in the set. Garnet of the Bloodflame. When Garnet of the Bloodflame enters the battlefield, return to your hand all creature cards in your graveyard that were put there from anywhere this turn. Other creatures you control have haste. This is a powerful, powerful card in this deck and in other decks. Basically, if you got board wiped, because you can flash it in, and as long as they hit the graveyard on that turn, yeah, you get them all back. So with the shenanigans that I can do with this deck, the Garnet is a very important card, and bouncing it back and forth sometimes happens. Wormstorm Surge for 5 in a red. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under my control, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. I put a lot of creatures in play here in this deck, and that is a lot of damage, and I usually dome people to the face, like just go after their life totals. I don't really take out creatures for the most part. Let me drink some coffee with the Crave is a powerful thing. White Castle. Thank you, Steve Jordan, for that cup. I've been using it to this day. Next card, Hidesu. Oh, God, I mispronounced that. Hidesu Devouring Chaos. This is a backup to Anji. In case Anji is taken out a bunch of times and I have to pay like 18 mana to get her back in, because, you know, when your commander is taken off the battlefield, you have to pay something called Commander Tax. And Commander Tax adds 2 mana for each time it's been put back into the command zone. So, yeah, it gets rough a lot of the time. So, having backups is a good thing, and this is a great backup in a non-traditional way. 1 in black, sacrifice a creature to scry 2, okay? We get to look at the top 2 cards of our library and either, you know, put them on top in any order or put them in the bottom of our library in any order. But 2 in a red, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. When you exile a non-land card this way, Hidesu deals damage equal to the exiled card's mana value to any target. Once again, it's just kind of like a backup Anji in a weird way, but also a backup Wormstorm Surge, because, you know, these two are doing very similar things, just going about it in a different way. Judith, the Scourge Diva. Judith, the Scourge Diva, other creatures we control get +1/+0. Whenever a non-token creature we control dies, Judith, the Scourge Diva deals 1 damage to any target. Once again, we're in Rakdos and we're playing Madness, so we do have sacrifice outlets. So that is a thing that this deck can and will do. Containment Construct. Now, this is the true backup to Anji. It doesn't do what Anji does by just immediately, ditching cards out of our hands just by tapping a creature. But what Containment Construct does is, whenever you discard a card, you may exile that card from your graveyard. If you do, you may play that card this turn. Once again, sometimes our commander gets really expensive to cast, and we really don't want to have to spend 10 mana to get our commander on the field. Because, you know, Judith is a hate target. Gonna say it right now. Still framed up. Yeah, let's move him over. Let's move that over there. And then the next one, I'm gonna zoom out. I think it's a little too tight. My favorite pet card, Gruesome Menagerie. Choose a creature card with converted mana cost 1 in your graveyard, then do the same for creatures with mana cost 2 and 3. Return these cards to the battlefield. So if I got a bunch of 1-drops, 2-drops, and 3-drops in the graveyard, for 5 mana, I get all 5 of them back. I get 3 creatures back. 5 mana for 5 mana's value worth of creatures. It's almost like a Collective Company in black, and I think a lot of people don't give it the respect that it needs. Now, mind you, it's not a commander deck. It's not a commander staple for obvious reasons. It doesn't get everything back. Anything 4 mana and above, it's not getting back. But low to the ground decks, yeah, I love me some Gruesome Menagerie. Gary, the Merchant of Asphodel, Gray, Merchant of Asphodel, often nicknamed Gary, is what I would like to call a backup win condition. Gary, whenever Gary enters the battlefield, each opponent loses X life, where X is equal to the devotion to black. You gain life equal to the life lost this way. So on the field, on my battlefield, all these pips, and that's what these mana symbols are called, pips, when Gary Gray hits the field, sorry, I'm going to be calling it Gary a lot. Gary hits the battlefield. It's going to look at all the permanents except for non-basic land all non-land permanents. It's going to look at and see in the casting cost how many of these pips there are. Then it's going to deal that much damage to each player. So say we have 10 pips on board. Each opponent is losing 10 life. We're gaining 30. Gary's definitely a win con. The other win con, Sir Conrad the Grim. Sir Conrad the Grim, 3 and 2 black, and whenever a creature dies or a creature card is put into the graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature leaves the graveyard, Sir Conrad deals 1 damage to each opponent, and then you can pay 1 in a black. Each player puts the top card of their library into their graveyard. We discard a lot of cards. And when we discard a card with Anji, it's going into the graveyard first, I think. But either way, if it doesn't, Sir Conrad, and if we don't cast it and it's a creature and we leave it in the graveyard with Sir Conrad in, that's 1 damage. That adds up really quick. Dreadhound is the backup to Sir Conrad as well. When it enters the battlefield, mill 3 cards. Whenever a creature dies or a creature card is put into the graveyard from a library, each opponent loses 1 life. This is Harnfeld Horn of Bounty. I only play the Harnfeld side, although technically it's Burgi, God of Storytelling. Never use Burgi. I always have the Harnfeld Horn of Bounty for 4 and a red to discard a card, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. Once again, redundancy in this particular type of deck is a really good thing. And this is like our 3rd, 4th kind of different variant of Anji. And finally, the most powerful card in the deck. When it drops, everyone's like, yep, you were playing Archfiend of Infir. Whenever you cycle or discard a card, put a -1/-1 counter on each creature your opponents control. We're a discard deck. This gets outrageous fast. Plus, with our discard, we actually refill our hand. So we are... When this is on the field, it is the biggest target of hate next to Anji. In total. So that is the first commander deck I ever owned. Anji Falcon Wrath. I still play it, but it's probably close to getting parted out at this point. It's been 5 years, just about. I've played this deck a bunch of times. I still like the play patterns on it, but I hardly touch it anymore. I mean, this is the first time. I've updated it, obviously, a couple times, but, this is the first time I've actually taken the deck out of the box in quite a while. Every one of these commander decks, all 24, I've gone through and gotten the tokens for. I have gone through and gotten the tokens for every single one of these decks. And, if I didn't have the token... If I didn't have the token, I would literally either find the blank tokens that they make, or just grab one of the infinite tokens that I have and just write them right on there, or even just a basic land. Those are actual basic lands or proxies in tournaments in case you have a mangled card. The more you know. Now 1 down. Don't mind the box. That's some Rocky Horror stuff, which I've done for the better part of 30-odd years. This is my favorite deck box, by the way. We got Chatterfang. Now, depending on who I'm with. If I'm with my girlfriend, this deck's name is Chitty Chitty Fang Bang. If she's not in the state, because it is called Reign of Squirrels, named after my friend who is on the deck box, dressed as the Frankenfooter for his years. Yeah, God, I can say decades now. Decades ago, joke black metal band Black Evil Pants. They made a song, Reign of Squirrels, and that's what this is named. Chatterfang. It's a 2 and a green for a squirrel with Forest Walk, and if you make a token, you make a 1/1 squirrel token on top of that. Pay black and sacrifice X amount of squirrels. Target creature gets plus X, minus X till end of turn. This can flood out very, very quickly. Every time we make a token, it doesn't matter if it's a food token, a clue token, a treasure token, a 1/1 random token. It doesn't even matter if we're already making squirrel tokens with a card. Every token we make another 1/1 squirrel token. So if we make 3 clue tokens, we're also getting 3 1/1s. You're going to see what this deck does very quickly. First things first, Fable of Keeper of Fables. Whenever a non-human creature we control deals damage, whenever one or more non-human creatures we control deals damage to a player, draw a card. Combat damage. So basically, we're playing squirrels. There's no humans in the deck except for like 1 or 2, and you'll see why. Every non-human we have in this deck is card draw during combat. If it does combat damage to a player. All right, cool with that. All right. Tireless Provisioner. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under our control, we make a treasure or food token. Once again, with Chatterfang, we're making a food token and a 1/1 squirrel token anytime a land enters the battlefield. Scoot Swarm gets out of hand very quickly. When a land enters the battlefield under our control, make a 1/1 green insect creature token. We also make a green squirrel token as well. But if we have 6 or more lands, create a token that's a copy of Scoot Swarm instead. That is massive. Scoot Swarm, yeah, with the tokens that it makes, we make more squirrels. Gets out of hand, though, when we start making copies of Scoot Swarm. Because every copy of Scoot Swarm makes another copy of Scoot Swarm, which doubles and triples. And, yeah, it gets really sick really fast, and you have to have your good maths on that day if they've let you Scoot Swarm out a lot of things. Doubling season, because I'm a horrible monster. It was finally at a price that was okay. I traded some stuff in, got this. Finally, if an effect would create 1 or more tokens under your control, it creates that many more tokens instead. So if we have this out with Chatterfang, we're making 2 tokens now. If an effect would put 1 or more counters on a permanent you control, it puts twice that many counters on that permanent instead. So, if we're putting +1/+1 counters, every +1/+1 we get 2 +1/+1s, but we're not doing that. It's for the token generation. Jaheira, Friend of the Forest, one of the few humans in the deck. But tokens we control have tap to add a green mana. If we have a bunch of treasures, we don't have to sacrifice them anymore for mana. We can just tap them for green because of Jaheira being on the board. And we make a lot of tokens. Yeah. Creekwood Liege is one of my favorite pet cards in this deck because when it comes into play, all black creatures get +1/+1, green creatures get +1/+1, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a 1/1 black and green worm creature token into the battlefield. So on our upkeep, we're not only getting now a 3/3 black and green worm creature token, we're getting a 2/2 squirrel. That's why I like that card. Nut Collector. Beginning your upkeep, you may create a 1/1 green squirrel creature token. Threshold, all squirrels get +2/+2 as long as you have 7 or more cards are in your graveyard. As long as 7 or more cards are in our graveyard, all squirrels get +2/+2. We're making more squirrels, so at the beginning of our upkeep, we're making 2 squirrels because of Chatterfang. Bootlegger Stash. One of my favorite cards from New Capenna. Lands you control create a food token, a treasure token. Might as well just, in this deck, just say, create a treasure and a 1/1 squirrel. Because that's what happens. And when this is on the field with Chatterfang, good times are rolling with the Gala Greeters. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under our control, choose one that hasn't been chosen already. Put a +1/+1 counter on Gala Greeters, create a tap treasure token, gain 2 life. We're going to be making a lot of tokens, so that's going to escalate very quickly. Moldervine Reclamation. Whenever a creature we control dies, we gain a life and draw a card. In conjunction with getting rid of creatures, to eliminate other creatures with Chatterfang's ability, we can pop off on this and refill our hand very fast and gain 7 life at it. I've done it before. Mirkwood Backs, because we're dealing in tokens and sacrificing tokens, treasures and clues and foods and the squirrels even. Whenever we create or sack a token, each opponent loses 1 life with Mirkwood Bats. So if you're dealing in the token generation. Every black deck that can run it needs to run Mirkwood Bats. Toski, Bearer of Secrets. Can't be countered, indestructible, attacks each turn if able, and whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Whenever a creature you control, draw a card. This is not Keeper of Fables. That says one or more. So that just basically, if we attack with 5 creatures and get 5 hits of combat damage, we're drawing 5 cards. And then finally, one of the other humans in the deck, Piper of the Swarm. Rats you control have menace. All right, that's almost not even why it's in here. It's in here for its first ability. 1 and a black and tap to create a 1/1 black rat creature token. Sack 3 rats, gain control of target creature. We can make a rat and a squirrel and just go basically yard against any of our opponents. That is Chatterfang. The deck box as well. Not a Game Genic. BCW make good deck boxes as well. All right, Ishin 2 Heavens is 1. Basically, whenever a creature attacking causes a triggered ability of a permanent we control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. This is the doubling of combat tricks. Doubling of combat stuff. So we want as many cards in there as possible that deal in whenever this creature attacks, or whenever this creature attacks, it does X. And a lot of stupid things can happen, like Skylight Vanguard, probably one of the all-stars in this deck. Whenever it attacks, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token that's tapped and attacking. When that happens with Ishin, it doubles up, so we get 2 1/1 white creature tokens. Colossal Plow. Whenever this attacks, add 3 white mana, and you gain 3 life. Until end of turn, you don't lose this mana as steps and phases end. With Ishin on field, that's 6 mana, 6 life. That's mana ramp. Like crazy. It takes a while to get there, but when you get there, ooh. Stuff like Ryu, Storm's Edge. First Strike. Whenever a samurai or warrior you control attacks alone, untap it. If it's the first combat phase of your turn, there's an additional combat phase after this phase. So if we attack with a samurai solo, we get to untap it, and there's another attack step, but it adds 2 attack steps, if I'm not mistaken. Either way, though, that is stupid. Duke Older Raven Guard. At the beginning of combat on your turn, another target creature you control gains haste and myriad until end of turn. Myriad makes a copy for each player, and then that creature attacks it. So, say we have a Raiju's Edge, just as an example, with Duke Older Raven Guard on field. Now we get 3 copies of Ryu, and then 3 more copies of Ryu, but 2 of them are attacking each player because we get the double attack triggers from Ishin. Morag, Fury of Akum. Each creature you control gets +1/+0 for each time it is attacked this turn. That's a weird phrase to say. Tell you why. Whenever a land enters a battlefield under your control, if it's your main phase, there's an additional combat phase after this phase. At the beginning of that combat, untap all creatures you control. So that's doubled up with Ishin. Ishin does dumb things. This is why I've powered this deck down a lot, and it still gets a lot of hate because of stuff like that. And powering it down, I mean, I've taken like some artifacts and some lands out of the deck. And Parhelion too. Whenever this attacks, create 2 4/4 white angel creature tokens with flying and vigilance that are attacking. So let's create 4 4/4 white angel creature tokens that are attacking. And then finally, Chance for Glory. It's not really a good card. It's a pet card of mine. It's a fun card of mine. When it was legal in Standard, I've won a few games in F&M with it. Creatures you control gain indestructible. Take an extra turn after this one. At the beginning of that turn's end step, you lose the game. You only play this card if you know you're going to win or you want to lose in a spectacular fashion. Urza, Chief Artificer. This is one of the precons that I have that I barely touched. Anji is heavily upgraded precon. Urza, 2 cards. And I made sure they were the retro frames that came in the Brothers War, because this is a Brothers War deck. So yeah, Urza, Chief Artificer. Affinity for artifact creatures. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each artifact creature you control. Artifact creatures you control have menace, meaning it takes 2 creatures to block it. At the beginning of your end step, create a 0/0 colorless construct artifact creature token with this creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. This deck has the come into play tapped artifact lands. It has the basic artifact lands. It has all artifacts. Chromatic Lantern is one of the improvements I made because I cracked a foiled Chromatic Lantern retro frame that fits. So I decided to put it in because we are playing 3 colors and lands you control have tap to add 1 mana of any color. Tap this to add 1 mana of any color. Perfect fixing in a 3-color deck, Chromatic Lantern. Foundry Inspector. Artifact spells we cast cost 1 less to cast. It's, mana ramping in ways that we have to find that are unique for the Esper colors, because it's not really known for mana ramping. So we have to find whatever little advantage that we can. Adopt their spy network. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control an artifact, create a 1/1 colorless stop their artifact creature token with flying. Whenever one or more artifact creatures you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So yeah, if you get a hit in with an artifact creature, you're drawing a card. You're also making more Thopters as well, and that's actually fueling your constructs that you make at the beginning of each end step, because the constructs are 0/0s, but they care about the amount of artifacts on the field. Urza's Ruinous Blast. Exile all non-land permanents that aren't legendary. Almost everything we play in this deck is legendary. Legendary meaning legendary. Basically, if it's a legendary, you can only have 1 copy of it on the field. Most of the stuff that we play is legendary. So, yeah, it's not as big of a deal for us. Tempered Steel. Artifact creatures you control get +2/+2. Aaliyah, Artful Provocateur. Flying, Death Touch, Lifelink. Other creatures you control with flying get +1/+0. Whenever you cast an artifact or enchantment spell, create a 1/1 blue fairy creature token with flying. It's just another kind of creature maker. The other Tawanus, Solemn Surveyor. This could be the other commander in the deck as well. Create a token that's a copy of 1 target artifact token you control. Mill 2 cards. And then for 4, 3 of it being Esper colors, sacrifice 2 artifact tokens, exile an artifact creature card from your graveyard, create a token that's a copy of the exiled card, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. Activate only as a sorcery. I've hardly ever used this card, but whenever I have, it's been pretty good. And Skull Clamp, because we need Clampies up. Skull Clamp, target creature gets +1/-1. Whenever that equipped creature dies, draw 2 cards, equip 1. This is a famous card in Commander, in Magic, because it never should have been printed like this. If you don't know the story, they screwed up the printing of Skull Clamp, or they powered it up or powered it down in they powered it up in a way that they didn't anticipate, or I think it wasn't supposed to be. I think it was an error in design that they didn't catch until the card had already been printed, and by then it's too late. If not, there'll be an addendum right here with Future Dom. Hi, Future Dom here. About Skull Clamp, kinda right. On Blogatog, which is Mark Rosewater, head of R&D's blog, he's answered some questions. In 2016, it was asked, can you tell us a story of how Skull Clamp made it through R&D and playtesting as broken as it is? His response, it got changed from +1/+1 to +1/-1 late in the process. +1/+1 tested okay, so how can making it worse hurt? Not development's finest hour. Then we go on to a few more in-depth details. Originally, it was supposed to be a 3-mana artifact to cast and 2 to equip with no stat boosts. and only part of the card, the only part of the card that was original was when it dies, draw 2 cards. Late in development, we're talking a month before this went to the printers. It was decision was made to push equipment in the set it came out, which was Darksteel. So Skull Clamp became what we know today. +1/-1. When this creature dies, draw 2 cards with an equip cost of 1. And basically, all 1/1 token makers got really good card draw out of it. So yeah, back to you, Past Dom. Once again, we got the Game Genic clear boxes. I like Game Genic stuff. They're pretty good. They keep my stuff nice and tight. Admiral Beckett Brass. That's right, it's Pirates. Argy matey. I used to have a lot of funny cards in this deck, like Ghost Ship. It's a 2/4 that regenerates for 3 blue mana, but it's a Ghost Ship. I mean, come on, it's Pirates. Anyway, other Pirates in control get +1/+1. Whenever, at the end step, whenever we get to steal a non-land permanent from a player, as long as that player has been dealt combat damage by us by 3 different Pirates. 3 or more Pirates. This is Pirates Typal, Kindred. It's basically a pirate deck, and I want to steal your stuff. But it's also got a couple backup win conditions as well. If you're playing a Typal Kindred type of deck, you need a reflection, and in blue, you need Reflections of Lajara. Simply put, whenever it comes in the field, you name a creature type. Pirates. Whenever you cast a pirate spell, copy that creature. Whenever you cast a creature spell of that pirate subtype, copy it. So every pirate we cast gets doubled. We make 2 copies. If it's legendary, you still got to kill one of them. But, you know, you'll see some of the pirates that do weird, bad things to good people, and how I don't feel sorry for them playing my pirate deck. Spell Swindle, counter target spell, create X colorless treasure artifact creature tokens, where X is that spell's converted mana cost. We like to do treasury things here. This deck does run a dockside. I'll pull it out, but it's not part of this, I think, because it's just too easy to say, this is a really important card. No shit, Dockside Extortionist is a good card. It belongs in every red deck. Mirkwood Bats, because we deal with artifacts as well, and sometimes tokens that are made with Reflections of Lajara. Our backup win con, Revel in Riches. Basically, whenever a creature or opponent controls dies, create a colorless treasure artifact creature token, treasure. Create a treasure token, add 1 mana of any color. At the beginning of our upkeep, if we control 10 or more treasures, we win the game. So if we have like 13 treasures up, and our opponents pass the turn to us, and they haven't figured it out yet, as soon as the upkeep happens, we win. Has it happened? No. Is it a big threat? Yes. Has it taken some heat away from other things on my board that shouldn't need to be dealt with? Yes. It's a hate magnet, and I like it for that reason. Will I ever win a game with it? Probably. But it's mainly meant there to cause confusion amongst our opponents and make them use their good removal spells on a, technically speaking, bad card. Because Hostage Taker with the Reflections of Lajara is just terrible. When Hostage Taker enters the battlefield, exile target artifact or creature until Hostage Taker leaves the battlefield. You may cast that card for as long as it remains exiled, and you may tap mana as though it were mana of any color to cast that spell. We basically get to steal stuff. Once again, as I said, we're pirates. We're stealing stuff. Arr, matey. And that's on the board. I have taken so many ridiculous things with Hostage Taker and then casted it on my field. It's a feel-bad moment for our opponents. I really don't like it. It's one of the few cards that I actually play that steals stuff. Black Market Connections, full send that, because at the beginning of our pre-combat main phase 1, choose 1 or more. Create a treasure, lose a life. Draw a card, lose 2 life. Create a 3/2 colorless shapeshifter creature token with Changeling, lose 3 life. The Changeling is considered a pirate as well, because Changelings and Shapeshifters are considered all creature types. Time Stream Navigator. I bought the Precon from Lost Caverns of Ixalan Pirate deck to upgrade this deck severely. And Treasure Navigator was one of the cards that I didn't have before. Ascend, if you have 10 or more permanents, you get the City's Blessing. Never leaves. Even if it's a massive board wipe with a Wrath of God and, destroy, Armageddon, everything's gone. You still have City's Blessing because once you have it, you can't get rid of it. 2 and 2 blue and tap. Put Xtreme Navigator on the bottom of its owner's library. Take an extra turn after this one. Activate only if you have the City's Blessing. It's kind of a cool way to get an extra turn. I don't really like using cards that, say take an extra turn, and then take an extra turn, and then take an extra turn. I want to go through that in different cute ways. And I think Xtreme Navigator is a great way to do it. Storm the Vault. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you create a colorless treasure artifact token with tap and sack to add 1 mana of any color. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 5 or more artifacts, transform Storm the Vault. This flips into a land that taps for 1 mana or add blue mana. It taps for 1 colorless mana or add blue for each artifact we control. I'll flip it now. See? Vault of Cataclan. That's why the other camera's set up. Croesus Catacombs. This is a lair land, okay? It taps for our Grixis mana. It can tap for one of, a blue, a black, or a red. When it enters the battlefield, sacrifice it unless you return a non-lair land you control to its owner's hand. These come into play untapped. Lairs are more important than people give them credit for. There's a reason why I've bought like 5 of each lair. Like last year, like 5 or 6 of each lair last year. And, 5 or 6 of the slow fetch lands too I bought just because I'm not, I'm not made of money here, folks. And also I like looking at budget ways and, Croesus Catacombs, the lair lands are great, phenomenal. They don't come into play tapped. Vanquisher's Banner because every type Kindred deck needs it. Enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1. Whenever you cast a creature spell of the chosen type, draw a card. Herald's Horn. When it comes into play, choose a creature type. Creature spells you cast of the chosen type cost 1 less to cast. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature card of the chosen type, you may reveal it and put it into your hand. Obviously, it's pirates, because there's almost every single creature in this deck is pirates. And finally, Mystic Remora, also known as Poor Man's Ristic Study, which puts in so much work. Cumulative upkeep 1. So every upkeep after you bring it in, you have to pay 1 mana, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then 5. But in Commander, this card's put in work. I put it for an orbit, I paid up to the 2, and it drew me like 10, 12 cards in that time. Because whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, you may draw a card, unless that player plays 4 mana. If you get this out on turn 1, on your turn, you're going to have a pretty stacked hand, and you've gone through your whole library. Once again, it's Gamegenic clear boxes. I like these clear boxes because you can see what's in it. This is Tom Bombadil. One of the 3? Yeah, one of the 3 Lord of the Rings decks that I made. I didn't buy a precon of Lord of the Rings. I made 3 Lord of the Rings decks. My girlfriend bought the boxes, and then we cracked them open and we made some decks with them. Tom Bombadil. Wooburg, which is 1 mana of every color. If this is the Saga deck. If on our field, the sagas that we control have 4 or more counters on them, this has hexproof and indestructible. Whenever the final chapter of a saga we control resolves, reveal cards from the top of our library until we reveal a saga card. Put that card into the battlefield, put the rest on the bottom of our library in a random order. This ability triggers only once each turn. I forget that last line of text too many times. I have to be reminded of it. Because it's seriously the last line of text. If it's the first line of text, once each turn, if this happens, I would remember it every time. So this is the Sagas deck. 5 color. We have to do some cheeky things, but it's not like our Shrine deck that we'll get to in the next one. Scholar of New Horizons. When it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. Remove a counter from a permanent you control. Search our library for a Plains card. Reveal it. If an opponent controls more lands than we do, you may put that card onto the battlefield tapped. If you didn't put the card onto the battlefield tapped and put it into your hand, we can remove our Saga counters just to search for Plains. We can't do it a lot because we don't have actually that many Plains cards in the deck, but it does look for the dual lands and whatnot. And the tap duels that say Plains Forest. And as long as it says land type Plains something else, it'll find it. Azusa's Many Journeys. We may play an additional land this turn. First step. Second step, we gain 3 life. Third step, exile turns into a creature. When sagas come to the battlefield, we put a counter on it. So the first step happens, we can play an additional land. Then at the beginning of our upkeep, the saga triggers. Counts up, and then once the third one happens, it's exiled, or like these creature sagas, they flip it. But it's completed, so Tom Bombadil still sees it, so we, go through our top card of our library until we hit a saga, and we're playing like, I think, 30-something sagas in this deck. Like, there and back again. Uh-oh. There and back again. Up to 1 target creature can't block for as long as you control there and back again. The ring tempts you. Second step, search your library for a mountain card, put it in. Third step, create Smog, a 6/6 legendary dragon creature token, and when this creature dies, create 14 treasure tokens. That's on brand, it's on flavor. It's one of the, that's why I say some of the flavor wins in the Lord of the Rings set are, but then, Tempted by the Ring is another fail for me. Eerie Ultimatum. Return any number of permanent cards with different names from your graveyard to the battlefield. If our graveyard is fully stocked with a ton of sagas, and we just play this card and it doesn't get countered, most of the time the rest of the table is conceding, because that is a lot of crap that's about to happen. It is massive when it happens. It is expensive to get out, but we're 5 color, we shouldn't have a problem with it. Resurgent Belief. Suspend. For 1 and a blue, we suspend 2. So at the beginning of our upkeep, we remove a suspend counter. When the last suspend counter is removed, we may cast it without paying anything. Return all enchantment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. All sagas are enchantments. Graveyard recursion, just going about it in a different way. Satsuki, the Living Lore. Put a lore counter on each saga you control. We can tap it to do that. When the Living Lord dies, choose 1. Return target saga or enchantment creature we control to its owner's hand, or return target saga card from the graveyard to our hand. So we can fast forward our sagas, if you will. And we can also do it in response. If somebody targets Tom Bombadil and we only have 3 tokens, 3 counters on the sagas, we can pump 1 up to make it 4, to make it hexproof and indestructible. Narsi, the Fable Singer. Lifelink. Whenever you sacrifice an enchantment, draw a card. And when a saga is completed, it is sacrificed. When the final chapter of a saga you control resolves, each opponent loses X life and you gain X life, where X is that saga's mana value. Yeah, Narsi's pretty good. You can make a whole saga deck based off of Narsi, but it's even better in a Tom Bombadil deck. The Kami War. Exile target non-land permanent an opponent controls. And then step 2, return up to 1 other target non-land permanent. Then each opponent discards a card. And then we transform it into a 6/6 dragon. Okayashi Made Manifest. It's a 6/6. It is all colors. It's flying. It's trample. And when this attacks, defending player chooses a non-land card in their graveyard. Return that card to your hand from your graveyard and return it to your hand. Okakashi Made Manifest gets +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is the mana value of that card. Kami War is pretty good. Now see, also, you have to kind of be careful with Narsi for sacrificing an enchantment. I just realized. Because stuff like there and back again, the enchantment sacrifices. Okay. But the creature enchantments don't. So you don't get the Narcy trigger to draw a card on that because they're exiled and flipped and transformed. Goldberry, River Daughter, Thickness. We can tap to move a counter of each kind onto Goldberry. From a target permanent we control onto Goldberry. So we can move our Saga counters onto Goldberry. Okay. Then we can tap blue and tap her to move one or more counters from Goldberry onto another target permanent we control. If we do, draw a card. So once again, we can kind of sort of loop through our sagas. Gloin, Dwarven Emissary. Whenever you cast a historic spell, create a treasure token. Everything in this deck is historic. It is artifacts, legendaries, and sagas are historic. And everything in this deck is a historic card. Sack a treasure, go target creature. Almost never do it. We're getting treasures. And finally, because we're an enchantment deck, Enchanter's Presence and other cards like her belong in the deck. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, draw a card. That's it. That is 6 of my 24 Commander decks. I have too many Commander decks, folks. I've already said it. I hope you like the setup. I really do. For this one, I don't know when these are coming out. This is definitely going to be next, like episode 2. But the other 3 I'm going to record, as I said, and in case, just in case, I miss a week or I'm inundated with either editing stuff or, you know, doing write-ups if I'm still doing those and whatnot. Like, you know, I need a backup plan just in case. I don't want something like that happen last year to happen, where I missed a week and then next thing you know, I missed a year. So my name's Dom Douglas. You know, thank you for watching. Don't forget, check us out on XtremeTVOnline.com. $4.99 a month. First 5 days are free. Catch all the awesome XWW action, and you know, may your top deck always be mythic.